Let's bring in former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kay Bailey Hutchinson. Kay, thank you so much for joining us. So last week we saw President Trump leave the G7 summit early because of this Middle East conflict. And now that Israel is saying Iran broke this ceasefire, we don't know how big this is going to get. But does President Trump attend this NATO summit today?
Yes, he is intending to go, and I think he will be there. I think that he has a very clear message at NATO, and I think that NATO is coming around to doing the things that he has been asking, and all the presidents with whom I've served have been asking for a long time, and that is to really step up, that we are in a different era. There's danger all over the world, and we need all the allies to step up.
How do other NATO nations, Kay, view President Trump's decision to get involved with the Israeli-Iran conflict militarily? What will that conversation be like?
Well, I think they are going to, of course, be very interested. I believe that they, honestly, if you poured into their real thinking, they are relieved that America has stepped up. They've done what America can always do, and that is assess a risk and then deter against it. And if deterrence doesn't work, you take it out. And that's what America has done. We cannot have a terrorist country with a nuclear weapon. We know what Iran can do, and Iran and its proxies are one. And when we talk about Houthis and the Hezbollah and Hamas, that's Iran. And we can't afford to have those kinds of players with nuclear weapons. And I think the European allies are very relieved that America has stepped up.
And NATO nations are going to pledge to dramatically increase their defense spending to 5% of their GDP. But the timing of when that goes into effect is greatly in question. 10 years, some countries say, but the UK isn't even sure about that timing. And Spain also saying that's not going to happen.
Well, it appears that Spain is going to hold out. They will not stop NATO from adopting this. They can sort of pass, but not kill what everyone else will be doing. It will be difficult, but of the 5%, 1.5% of that is hardening their infrastructure so that if any of those countries are attacked in any way, cyber or by regular other means, they need to be hardened to deter that themselves. And I think they accept that. We need harder highways. We need a better rail system, the airports to take the heavy equipment that would be needed if there were an invasion of a NATO country. So I think the 1.5% is certainly something they accept that they must do to have the interoperability. And then, of course, we've been asking for 2%, which has been very hard to come by all these years. And now everyone, except Spain possibly, is going to accept 3.5%. Let me make one other point, though. Just the spending on their own of 3.5% is not what NATO really needs. They need to make sure that it is all interoperable so that there is a sharing of information, there's a sharing of equipment, that we have consortia with European countries and the U.S. so that the technology is state of the art. We don't want Europe alone. We want Europe interoperable with us for that defense umbrella that we are all seeking through NATO.
Yeah, and if there is ever a time to realize that defense spending and a defense umbrella needs to be in place, the time is right now. Kay Bailey Hutchinson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Karen.
You're very welcome.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.